miles to the world, we're hitting first base. Marty Lurie with friends, home run. You know the ways and the trends, the stories all with the match of the block. It's Marty and friends. Marty and friends.
Hey, everybody. I'm a friend of Marty Lurie, and
Yes.
I'm happy about that. Glen Kuiper, along with my good friend Marty Lurie. It's Marty Lurie and Friends and the Glen Kuiper Show, All Giants. It's a combo tonight. Eric's running the board as always, and he's in charge. He keeps this thing rolling along. But so we like to do this once in a while. Combine the shows. You can watch it on Marty's YouTube channel. You can watch it on my YouTube channel, whatever you want. But we're going to talk about Giants baseball. Gentlemen, how are you?
Good, very good. Boy, interesting week, Glenn. We knew after the weekend something had to happen at some point. And you were out there all week long, watching the ball club, and something did happen. And the contributors last night, Daniel Johnson contributed, and today Dominic Smith, a big double for him. So things happened, and they won 2 games. Still not crushing the ball, but coming back from 5-0 last night was a big deal.
And I tell you, I'm sorry. And I tell you, yeah. And the thing I loved about the announcement that Buster Posey made, he's just shaking things up. He wants to get this team back on track more than anything. It's not, for me, it wasn't more about the players that were coming onto the roster as much as he wants to get this club rolling. He sees what the pitchers are doing out there, the starting staff, the bullpen. They're keeping him in this. And he had to do something to show people, hey, guys, you need to wake up here. Got to get where I'll bring in some guys. If they're hungry for it, I'll bring them in and let them contribute.
All right, so let's start with today. The game today, 3-2 final. Another, gee whiz, I had a headache again after. It's 4 straight headaches, guys. Okay, 4 straight headaches each day. But good game today. I mean, it was fun. Robbie Ray was great. There were a little frustration early. Again, opportunities to score. But they didn't. But then they got the bottom of the third. You saw, and what I was happy about is last night you saw some better at bats, and in that third inning you saw some better at bats. Chapman got a base hit to load the bases, and then the Adames sac fly. You keep pulling for this guy to contribute, and then Dom Smith with the big double, and that was a terrific at bat. But all in all, it was a fun game. It was nerve-wracking. You're starting to think they're all going to be like this. But after what happened last night, and then what happened in the first 2 games of this series, guys, to come back last night and then come back again today, I thought the last 2 days were huge for this Giants team. They really, really needed not just W's, but the way they did it, I think, gave them a little confidence going into this weekend.
Yeah, well, look, they could have lost all 4 games, or they could have won all.
They could have won all 4. Yeah,
they could have won all 4 games too, and that's the kind of week it was. But Glenn, talking about today, in that first inning, Jung Ho Lee gets the double, bounces into the stands, so it's a ground rule double. And then here comes Chapman and Adames, and Dylan Cease just, takes care of business and punches him out. You said, boy, here we go again. So there's always that little element. But as you said, the third inning, a team that's not scoring a lot of runs, not getting a lot of hits. And I will say this, I just happened to look it up in the series. They got 5, 6, 8, and 6 hits, and no runs, 2 runs, 6 runs, and 3 runs that they did the whole week. But when you get a couple of walks, you got to take advantage of it. And Ramos gave him a great at bat in the third inning. Lee, another great at bat. They're getting deep in the counts here, fouling balls off. They're doing their job. And then, as you said, Chapman blooped a single, and that loaded the bases. And Adames, boy, you thought slider away. And he fought it off, and he got a ball up in the air and got the first run in. And then for me, the big thing of the day was Dominic Smith. And Glenn, this guy today, 3 for 4. He plays a decent first base. He's a veteran. He'll be 30 years old June 15th. He's been around. He can swing the bat, as Shooty likes to say. He can swing the pole. He knows how to hit. And he came through with a huge double that drove in a couple of runs. And then now it's, 3-2, and you've erased the home run that Manny hit. And now you're up 3-2. And now the fun begins. And it just drives you nuts for the whole game, right up to the last pitch. And they hang on and win it 3-2. So a very exciting game. And the right person contributed today. That is Adames, and Dominic Smith, the new first baseman, only hits against right-handed pitching. Then I probably won't put him in against too many lefties, but he got the big hit.
And what's great? You're talking about, strap on the seatbelt there at the end. It was great watching Tatis. He thought he had that one. He thought he had it. He laid into it. He bat flipped. He kind of looked over in his dugout, and hey, he got and the look on his face when he's walking back to the dugout, just the absolute disbelief of that guy. It was great. Hey, welcome to Oracle Park. He should know better. I don't understand why he is who he is. But yeah, I tell you, man, there were some nerve-wracking points, and especially in this game. Doval, because remember his last outing, it wasn't exactly perfect. Struggled a little. He likes to get slider happy, right, Marty? He likes to get slider happy. Doesn't want to rely on that fastball. And sometimes he gets some.
He relied on it today, though.
Yeah, he did.
I know he can get ahead with his fastball, and then the slider late. I think when he can't throw strikes with that fastball, which we saw on Tuesday night, then he's like, all right, and he feels better throwing the slider for a strike. And that was the case the other night. But today, even with Cronenworth, the last out, Cronenworth, I feel like, I don't know, there's something about that guy. I feel like he's going to get a hit every single time against the Giants. There's something about it. But he kept pumping fastballs in there. Good location, a little up, fouled it off, and then he got in the perfect spot to drop a slider on him. So if he can just have an idea, if he can even throw one fastball for a strike in an at bat, I think that's huge for him. And we saw him not be able to do it on Tuesday. And you think about Tuesday night, guys, he couldn't throw his fastball for a strike, right? Machado absolutely was sitting on a slider. He knew he was going to get it, and he was even out ahead a little bit, but he knew it was coming, flips a base hit, and that was the big hit in the game. But I like the fact that Doval today wasn't afraid to throw the fastball. He was throwing 101. And to me, that showed that he had confidence today, even after what happened on Tuesday night.
Yeah. What do you think of the Rodriguez in the 8th and Duvall in the 9th? What do you think about that?
Yeah, you know what I think, and it always kind of bothers me when fans criticize Bob about how he handles the bullpen. They have the best bullpen in baseball. It's the deepest bullpen in baseball. He's trying to keep these guys fresh as best he can. You'd love to go, Rodriguez, Walker, Rogers, Duvall, or 6, 7, 8, 9. Boom. Let's do that every time we have a lead. That's not realistic. I think he has to be careful with Rodriguez. He's thrown a lot, and he's so terrific. I think they're a little careful with Rodriguez. Sometimes you have to bring Eric Miller in the 7th or 8th inning. Sometimes you have to bring Spencer Bivens in. I know everybody's like, what are they bringing Bivens in? Sometimes you have to do that. And what none of us know is, before every game, the manager has guys that there's a red dot next to their name. That means they're not pitching tonight. There's a yellow dot next to a guy's name. That means, maybe for an inning, but nothing more. But we don't know that. I think, man, I love this bullpen. If he's got to mix and match a little bit, fine. He's got more guys to do it. So Rodriguez was great. But you know what? If there's guys on first and second and one out in a one-run game in the 6th inning, I don't have a problem bringing Rodriguez in there. Get your guy in there if it's getting hairy in the 7th or 8th inning. So I stick up for Bob because I think he does a good job, and he has in mind I need these guys to be really good and somewhat fresh all year long. That's a tough job for a manager, but that's something a good manager has to do.
Can I ask a question too, real
Sure.
quick, Marty?
Yeah.
Do you think the reason why it's getting so amplified is because the Giants are so close in all these games because they can't score runs? It doesn't really give them the leeway to go out and, if you to feel comfortable to go to a Bivens and now Jelly and such, for the simple fact that Giants are always in it by a run or two, and it's got to be tough for the manager to be able to navigate, because you want to win the game, but you also want to keep those guys fresh.
Well, you still have Tristan Beck is still here, isn't he?
He is.
And Jelly was great last night.
Three guys.
Yes.
Three of your relievers are those guys who are not going to be pitching in high leverage situation. Bivens was a fluke the other night. You won't see that too often. But the fact of the matter is, if Duvall needs a day, I think it's going to be Rodriguez that gets it.
Maybe
He's going to be the guy. Why not? My God. I mean, he's got a whip of 060 and, he's got 40 strikeouts and 22 innings. That's something crazy. And he gets the job done. And he got
his ERA is 0.64.
Yeah.
And he doesn't walk nobody.
Well, that was his issue. Remember, Marty, he couldn't throw strikes in spring training a couple of years ago. And in the minor leagues, that was always an issue. He had trouble throwing strikes. That's not,
but he's fine now. And Duvall and Glenn, you're right. He did throw the fastball today, and Manny got one and smacked it into right field. Sheets got a hit. Now it's first and second. And Iglesias, he's a tough little out.
Mm-hmm.
And he
absolutely. That's a tough lineup.
Yeah, Thomas did a nice play, and then it was Cronenworth, and he froze Cronenworth there. So that worked out well. So what do we think about the moves? To me, the moves are rebuilding the bench. That's what they're doing. This is not long-term to me. These are guys who can help you, but I don't see them being the difference of winning a division or a wild card or not. I'm surprised Huff was gone. I thought he did a fairly decent job, but they must have a reason for Kisner. Daniel Johnson, though, is the interesting one, and get your opinion of him. If you look at his AAA numbers, and he's been around. He was with the Mets. He was with San Diego. He was with Cleveland, Washington, Baltimore. Kids from Vallejo, from Jesse Bethel High School. His AAA numbers are fabulous. I mean, he does a lot, and he got a couple of hits last night. What does this do to Yaz, Glenn? And what do you do with Encarnacion now? Because this is the bulk of what they got going now.
Yeah, listen, and I agree with you. I mean, are these two guys going to be on this team on October 1st? Who knows? But something needed to be done, and I know you guys talked about it at the top of the show. Something needed to be done. There needed to be some type of bold move, and to Buster and Zach's credit, they did it. They made some moves. They shook it up a little bit. You don't like to see guys get let go. Let's not ever forget what Lamont Wade did. He was a pretty good player for a couple of years, but the last couple of years, he just hasn't been able to get it going. It's part of it. But so, I liked what they did, and I think there is something to kind of shaking things up a little bit. And, last night, the Johnson kid was a big reason why they won. And today, Smith was a big reason why they won. And Encarnacion, I mean, I know, Marty, you're not sure about him defensively, and I don't think anybody is, but he's looked pretty good out there. He's made some nice plays. He made a great throw today. He made a nice play in left field. So, I don't know. I think they're here for, to just maybe get a little life. I think the Johnson kid plays with a little edge. I know his agent, Mark O'Brien, and Mark said, yeah, he's got a little spunk. He's got a little edge, which is good. Let's do that. But the reason they're here, guys, is listen, Mike Yastrzemski is scuffling. I mean, I looked it up, guys. Yastrzemski is 3 for his last 41. And his last RBI was May 4th. So
a month ago.
Yaz has gone 25 games without an RBI. I love Yaz. but that's a major, major slump. So you had to do something. Sit him down for 2 or 3 days, let him catch his breath, and then get him back out there when he's ready, and hopefully you get him going. That's what you got to do. I mean, there's slumps, and then there's really, really big slumps. To me, 3 for 41. Now you're talking about 2-3 weeks of nothing. So you made a move, and play these guys a little bit, give Yaz a little break, and I think that's what Bob will do.
Yeah, well, you can only do so much in June. You can't really make
absolutely.
trades.
That's a great call, Marty.
So, in my opinion, they're rebuilding the bench and getting guys who can swing the bat a little bit and taking a chance, because Wade and Yastrzemski were killing them. They were going nowhere. And that's what you do. And you bring in people like that. The real question will come at the end of July and see where they're at, and when a trade may have to be made, and you may have to really be creative. But at this stage of the season in June, all you can do is check the waiver wire, check guys who've opted out of their contracts, check what you have internally, or go to Durango in Mexico. Johnson.
That's where he came from.
No.
I think that's a great point, Marty. And I think, it's important for fans to understand that. We'd all love the Giants to make a big trade, and they very well may. But to make any kind of impact trade the first week of June, it's almost impossible. I mean, it just doesn't happen. Okay. So what you do is kind of what the Giants are doing. 2 months, we evaluate. There's some things we need to change. Do we have any internal options that maybe can give us a lift for a little while? That's what they're doing. So you check internally if you got anything. And then, when July 1st comes, July 15th, then you start thinking, okay, who do we like here? And I mean, they're thinking that now. I mean, they're looking now, like they got names and names and names of guys that they may, look into. But Marty's point was perfect. You just aren't going to make a blockbuster deal the first week of June. It's just not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
Right. And George.
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
George has 2 questions. Here we go. Do the Giants make a splash at the deadline? And if so, who would you like to see the Giants to pursue?
Yeah,
Marty, what do you think?
Well, it just depends who's available. You don't know which teams are going to be out of it at the deadline. There's still teams that are hanging around. You don't know who's going to be there and who won't be there. But position-wise, I think we're still looking at the same positions: first base, second base, right field. Yeah. And if something showed up in any of those positions that could help you, you could make a move there. Right now, Encarnacion and Wilmer and Casey Schmidt and Dominic Smith and Daniel Johnson, those are the guys who are kind of getting all the action now. And we'll just have to see what they do. But ultimately, you want Adames. Now, let's say Adames all of a sudden becomes Adames and starts hitting. It's like making a trade for a guy, because right now he's doing nothing. Now, if you get to July 20th and all of a sudden Adames has got, 13 home runs and he's hitting the ball, you may not have to go and get some big time slugger. He's doing what he was paid to do. So a lot depends on where they are at that point, George. To say who they pursue, I don't know, but the positions they would pursue are the ones I think I just mentioned.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to make a prediction. I think they do make a deal. I think they make a significant deal. I do. Boy, you start throwing names out there. You got to be careful. You know who I like a lot is the outfielder in Boston, Duran.
Oh, come on.
He's a terrific player. He's not a big home run guy. He's not going to hit you 30, but I don't need a 30 home run guy.
No.
This guy will this guy will run around and steal bases, and he's fun to watch. He's aggressive. He plays with an edge. They got all these young players in Boston. The Red Sox are now struggling. I'd have to look it up, but he's got to be 2 years away from free agency. So that this is just off the top of the head, but that's a name. It's going to cost you. It's going to cost you one of your young pitchers and probably one of your young outfielders at least, maybe more. But listen, sometimes you got to do these things, man.
If that guy, Craig Breslow is running Boston now. He's new, and he would love to do something, believe me. And they're already talking about Duran because they have a kid in the minor leagues to bring up.
Exactly. I'm going to see where he's at, guys, in his free agency. I think he's a couple years away from it, but
I think he is. He's got some control, right?
Yeah.
Right field, you put Duran in the outfield here.
Put him in right field. I mean,
lead him off, and he's a triple machine. He's a good player, not tremendous, but yeah, Duran. I'd love it.
You know what?
Now,
guys, he's not a free agent till 2029. So you'd have him through 2028.
Wow.
He's going to be a big money guy.
And Breslow may move him early because Boston is chasing the Yankees, and there's always that pressure, to chase the Yankees and to do something.
Yeah.
And he needs pitching. Boston needs pitching. They got the Crochet. Giolito got crushed the other day.
That's why you throw one of the young pitchers out there. You at least you're starting a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How about?
I'm concerned a little bit, guys. I'm a little bit concerned about Fitzgerald. I think he's definitely, to me, a big leaguer. And I think he's okay at second base, but he's really struggling offensively. There's just, the batting average isn't awful, but there's just not a lot of impact hits. He's got 7 RBIs this year. And again, I looked back, guys. You're gonna think I'm crazy. He has not driven in a run since April 22nd.
Wow.
Now he missed 2 weeks because of injuries, right?
And the guys hitting ahead of him aren't exactly getting on base.
I know, but still, you think about it, he's playing every day.
Look,
that's true.
I said this a couple of weeks ago.
I'm not seeing enough. I like him. I like him as a player. There's stuff there, but there's just not enough impact hits, right?
Well, he's got to get. Look, he's here for his speed and a little bit of power. The power has disappeared. He's not getting on, so he can't use his speed.
Right.
And I said this a couple of weeks ago. Give me, the Freddie Sanchez, the Scudero, the Sanoja. Give me a second baseman who could slap the ball around and get on base. And I love Fitzgerald. He's a great utility player. He could be the cost guy that if you need a pinch runner in the 8th inning, he's ready and he's your guy to come in. But clearly, second base is in that mix, Glenn. If they could do something there, there's no question.
How about this? I'm sorry, Marty. I was just going to ask you this before we go to break. We got a special guest coming. Maybe this is a topic we're getting into later. What about Bryce Eldridge? There's a lot of talk. He just got called up to Sacramento. Right? They slow roll this kid, right? Just to make sure when he gets the call up, he's sticking and you got nothing to worry about when he's at first base, right?
Well, I'll let Glenn answer that one.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think even though they just moved him up to AAA, which is a big deal. I mean, but I think, I think he played 34 games in AA, and they watched it. They watch every game. Buster watches every, Randy Wynn, they watch every game. And, I think what they saw was that he's fine. He's not at all overmatched. He had good numbers in those 34 games. So let's challenge him again. Now, I think, Marty and Eric, if he has a good 6 to 8 weeks in Sacramento where he doesn't look overmatched and there's enough improvement defensively, I think they would think about it. I do. They would seriously think about it. If he looks good in Sacramento, he is so talented. And if he doesn't look overmatched, you almost have to think about getting him in the lineup. That's how good this kid is.
Wow, look at
I
that.
think he's gonna be a monster when he gets here because of just his power. But there are things he needs to work on. Defensively, he's still raw, but
Right.
Look, and we saw him in spring training. And his first game against Texas, in surprise, he doubled and hit one about 600 feet over the batter's eye.
Yeah.
And we all were very excited. We couldn't wait to see the guy again. Well, they put him up his next 10 at bats or 11 at bats. And he struck out every time.
Yeah.
So it's the major leagues. And as Glenn says, you've got to dominate for a big guy like that. You can't have, this is not Dave Kingman. You can't have a hole in your swing and strike out 200 times. He's got to be a real player. So let's see. Hey, I'd love it.
I think he would have to really, really be impressive in Sacramento for them to do this. I mean, I want to make sure that people understand. If he's like, not bad. No, then it's not happening.
Right.
But if he is like, wow, this kid is crushing the ball, I think then they'll think about it. They'll think about it.
That's fair.
Yeah, the Kansas City kid, Caglione.
Yeah.
They brought up, he's from the University of Florida. He's a college kid. Kurtz from Wake Forest, college kid. The kid for the Angels, college kid. This kid's a high schooler. So you have to keep that. Yeah, you have
right.
To keep
20. He's 20.
He's a high school kid. So you got to let the kid breathe and let him become a baseball player. And then, but Will Clark has told me, and I'm sure he said to you, Glenn, the bat plays.
Yeah.
Will says the bat plays. Defensively, look, first base is very important. I mean, Adames throws a ball in the dirt. Chapman usually hits you in the chest. But first base, you got to cover a lot of ground. You got to know what you're doing. And he's a kid. He's 20.
Yeah.
He's 20. So let's see. But it's exciting. And it may mean that Dominic Smith and Encarnacion kind of deal with Wilmer Flores and Schmidt. Maybe that's okay. That may be okay. Maybe the issue would be right field or second base if that became available. But
then, so you see how this unfolds with these new guys in the next 6 weeks, and you're right, Marty. Then you'll have a better idea of what you really, really need. Do I need a first baseman? Do I need a second baseman? Do I need a right fielder? Because you got these guys now who are going to get an opportunity. Who knows? Maybe something happens, right? I mean, maybe Encarnacion starts to hit. So there's time to evaluate yet. And it's, baseball's, the season's so crazy because it just ebbs and flows, right? It ebbs and flows. 2 nights ago, we would all been, pissed off sitting here, not wanting to talk about it. But today, you know what? Hey, you know what? I like it. Braves are coming in. I feel pretty good.
Well, how about we're going to take a break here but in a second. But the Braves today, they win 10-4 in the 9th inning to Arizona, and they lost the game 11-10. 7 runs for Arizona in the 9th inning.
Wow.
Unstoppable. So now the Braves, I bring it up because the Braves are coming in.
Yeah.
And we're going to get Schwellen back, who has gone last 2 starts, no walks, 22 strikeouts. And then we get Elder on Saturday, and then Spencer Strider, who's 0-4 on Sunday. And the Braves are struggling, but they can score some runs. San Diego was not hitting, and they're still, the Giants. These games were Giant games in reverse. Atlanta may be a little bit different. They can hit the ball a little bit better.
Yeah,
so,
but they've struggled offensively too this year. The Braves, not as good as they should.
Their year,
right?
It's not their year.
I say you watch the Braves guys, right? You watch their game, and you're like, it's Matt Olson and Albies and Boom and Riley, and they got so many, and they're 27 and 34, right? It's like, how does that happen? Yeah, and they're not scoring a ton of runs. They're really not. So that you're right, Marty. They've lost 4. They've lost 11 out of 14. So maybe the Giants are getting them at a good time. That's what you hope for. When the team is, the Braves are good. They're just not playing well right now.
No, the bullpen's falling apart, and Acuna's back, and Olson's there, and Albies. So believe me, it's not going to be a picnic. It's not going to be a picnic, but we're getting the Braves at the right time. A couple of things. One, We're going to take a break, and we've got more show for you, so don't go anywhere. We got more baseball, too, to talk about with Glenn about the Giants and about what's going on with the roster. There's great comments, and I want to get some of these comments in.
Sure.
Robert Rothberg, the Giants will be contending all year for the wild card. Robert, I think you're right.
Matt Morse.
Stephen Books. Let's see, Matt Morse. What do you think about targeting your Dallas Garcia?
For the Rangers. Rangers aren't playing too well,
It's too much swing and miss for me with that guy. I don't know.
That's interesting. I didn't think of his name, but he does some damage, though.
He does.
That's a good name. I mean, but again, that's if you get a guy like that, then that's your guy, right? I mean, he's going to be here next year too, so you have to think about that too. I like getting a guy who you're going to have next year as well, but it's going to cost you more players in a trade. So
and then Steve was talking about Corbin dodged a bullet with Corbin Burns.
Look, anytime you sign a pitcher to a long-term deal, it's trouble. And look, Seattle did it with Robbie Ray, and they made the great trade for Haniger. Thank you. And now we got.
But Robbie Ray missed 3 years too, right? I mean,
it's tough to sign free agent pitching.
Yeah,
it is, unless it's Ohtani. And look, as a pitcher, he hasn't pitched.
Nope.
So, and even the Japanese kid Sasaki is out, and Yamamoto got lit up the other day. But these are big free agents.
Blake Snell
still on the shelf.
Yeah, it's tough.
I mean, I agree with you, Marty. When I see a pitcher get to 5-6 year deal as a free agent, which means they're a little up in their career, right? I mean, the Giants gave Logan Webb a 5-year deal, but he had just started his, he was 2 years into his career. Well, you see these guys getting, I was okay with the no Corbin Burns thing. And I know it sounds easy to say that now, but 6 years, the Giants would have probably had to give him 7 because I think he wanted to go to Arizona because he lives there. So you got to make a better offer, right? So now what do? You go 7.
Look, we're starting to sweat Adames, so this is only year 1, and he's not hurt.
I know.
So, that there's a real problem with some of these long-term contracts, unless you get the Soto or the guy who's 26 or 27 years old, who's just a superstar. And pitching today, you sign a guy for 7 years, and then all of a sudden you got Birdsong and you got Harrison and you got guys who are young. All of a sudden they show up, and that's pitching today. It's you're not looking for that crafty veteran anymore. You're looking for a guy who can bring it. So it's a good one. All right. Well, we're going to take a break. Marcus Shelby is going to join us next. Marcus Shelby has been on the show numerous times. He is an icon in the Bay Area, and he's got a show coming up Sunday at the Presidio Theater. It's called Blackball, the Negro Leagues and the Blues. And it's a fabulous show. It's coming up Sunday, and Marcus is going to be with us. He's a big Giants fan, too. And tell us about the show and how creative it is. And we'll do that. We'll take a break and come back with Marcus Shelby right after this.
Right on. When we come back, I'll bring us in with his music. How about that?
Fabulous.
Awesome.
Thanks.
All right, here we go.
It's going to be good.
Joining us is Grant Power, President and CEO of Nations. Grant, last year we talked about the amazing breakfast at Nations. I'm going to ask you this. What's your favorite lunch?
I'm pretty split. I guess I'm kind of like a pitcher who has 2 favorite pitches they like leaning on. I'd say half the time I do the hamburger and half the time I do the wild salmon burger. It really depends on which protein you want. We love our beef supplier in Northern California. We've been with them for decades. We test our beef all the time. We sell ocean-caught wild salmon. Friends don't let friends eat farm salmon. It's absolutely delicious. To mix it up, I guess it's like a pitcher who has a 2-seamer and a 4-seamer, or maybe a 4-seamer and a cutter. I actually go grilled onions on my hamburger half the time and raw onions the other half. Today at lunch, I got the French fries, but half the time I get the onion rings, and I had a wonderful slice of pecan pie. There's something for everybody, whether you like hot dogs or grilled cheese. It's really up to the individual what mood they're in, but my go-to is either the beef with the hamburger or the wild salmon, which is absolutely delicious.
Wow. I love it. Grant Power, President, CEO of Nations. Grant, thanks so much.
Pleasure being on.
Fans, Bridge Bank delivers their clients full relationship banking, including treasury management solutions and global market services. Bridge Bank offers financing solutions to businesses for their working capital, equipment, and real estate needs. This is very important in today's world. Fred Voss is the Senior Managing Director of Bridge Bank's commercial lending efforts in Northern California. He has commercial banking teams in San Jose with Jesse Garcia, San Francisco, Oakland, Cheadle, Cordova, and in Pleasanton. Bridge Bank, it's like banking at home. I can't say enough about it.
All right, there you go, Marty.
All right, fabulous. We have Marcus ready.
Here he is.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for
Good.
having me.
Good. You're on with Glenn and Eric and myself, and glad to have you here. And let me let the audience know a little bit about what's coming up, because this show is going to be fantastic. And hey, you got your City Connect on, huh?
Jung Hoo Lee, baby.
Nice.
Young, I am a hooligan, if you will. I love it.
All right, let me read a little bit about this show so people understand it. Marcus is a Bay Area bassist, a composer, educator, and artistic director of the Healdsburg Jazz Festival. Marcus is going to bring his 15-piece orchestra to present his original suite, Blackball, the Negro Leagues, and the Blues, and we just heard some of their music. It celebrates the history and legacy of Black baseball through songs, video, theatrics, singers, dancers, and clowns. The music honors baseball legends such as Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, Jackie Robinson, Orlando Cepeda, Willie Mays, and more. The music captures the sound of the game using blues, ballads, and swing to bring to life strikeouts, arguments with the umps, and home runs. How about that? Marcus, I love it. It's going to be a fabulous show. Tell us about it and how it came about.
Well, thank you for having me on. You know, I'm a big fan of yours, Marty. I have been for years and years as well, Glenn. And thank you for having me, Eric, and allowing me to talk about this show we have coming up. And I played baseball in high school, junior high school. But I, in the 80s, decided I wanted to be Michael Jordan. And I played basketball, and I'm going to a basketball scholarship. And then, you know, later in life, after basketball was done, and, you know, I've been a musician for 35 years now, professional. The love of baseball came back. You know, it never really left me, but it came back in a major religious way. I was originally an A's fan because I was, you know, I came to age 1972, 73, 74 during the three-peat. So I remember, you know, Vida was a dear friend of yours and of the show. And I used to listen to this Vida on Saturdays when near the end of his life. But he was my first hero, sports hero, Vida Blue, 1973, I think it was. And so later on, I became a Giants fan. And I felt, you know, I lived in Sacramento. I felt like we could either be a Giants fan or A's fan, depending on who was winning. And so I became a Giants fan, and then I became a student of the game. You know, different from wanting to be a player or anything like that, but really fascinated about the history. Really fascinated about the history of Major League Baseball. But then I discovered the history of Negro League Baseball, or blackball, and how it happened and how it ended and all the players involved. There's so many great players, that could have played in the major leagues, of course, and often did play in exhibition games with the major league players. But I got really interested in that, and I found a way to combine it with my profession, which is a musician and composer. And a lot of times when I don't know a lot about something, I'm like, you know what, I want to write some music about it because it's going to force me to study it, maybe make a trip or two if it's a specific geography. Maybe it's going to be a part of something I'm going to learn more about or organize meetings. And I've done that with different subjects. But with baseball, I found that there was such a major relationship between the sound of music, the sound of early big band jazz, and the sound of the game, particularly the black ball players who in many ways were like the black musicians during this time period, how they traveled, where they stayed, how they conducted their business, like the great musicians, Duke Ellington, Count Basie. There was all these great names in baseball, like Satchel Paige and Mule Suttles and Josh Gibson and Double Duty Ratcliffe. There was a certain style, a certain way they played, which was fast, which was, a single was a double, right? A double was a triple. They'd steal home. Now, we know the famous Jackie Robinson base that he stole home in 1956, I think it was 1955, where he stole home from third. And yeah, that was a big deal. That was a big thing, but it was something that was quite normal in the Negro Leagues. It was they took risks, they had speed, they found ways to, make the game really exciting. We don't see a lot of that right now. You might see it with people like Tatis, who I'm so glad we beat them today. Oh my God. You might see it with certain players, but for the most part, that was a hallmark of Negro League baseball. And so must have been about 8 years ago, I began the process. I was fortunate and blessed enough to get a commission from the Yerba Buena Gardens Festival to spend a couple years, do research, and write a piece that captured the history of the Negro League Blues, the Negro Leagues. And I called it Black Ball, the Negro Leagues, and the Blues. And it talks about the whole history, even going back to Fleetwood Walker and Wellday Walker, the two brothers who were the last to play in the major leagues before they were shut down and banned until Jackie Robinson, of course, 1947. And so I have a piece about that sort of captures this time period, which is, late 19th century. And not that, say, for instance, this style of music was happening in the late 19th century, but we do play early blues and swing that captures that era. We actually have musical renditions of certain plays. Like Marty, I told you I was really blown away by the umpire fight, Earl Weaver, the famous one. What was the name of the umpire's name?
Ron Luciano.
Ron Luciano.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the great. I mean, there's a whole story of how they captured that on mic and everything. But we do the history of the Negro Leagues, but then I have like actual plays in the piece. Like we have a umpire fight. We have two clowns that reenact that. One of our singers is the umpire. After he gets yelled at for making a bad call, and much like Earl Weaver, we don't use curse words like Earl Weaver was using, but after he gets yelled at, he sings an aria, and it's called the Umpire's Blues, the Umpire Aria Blues. And, I was inspired by one of the great Black umpires during that time, Bob Motley. And so I did a lot of research on, how they live. Many times they traveled with the teams. There's stories of these umpires having to sleep in the same beds with some of the players. There's a story where one of the umpires threw one of the players out of the game, and that night he was the roommate of the player he threw out. So you have all of these just crazy stories. I think what's amazing about this whole history was it was a business. It was one of the largest black businesses during this time, the Negro Leagues, because they had to take care of everything. They had to take care of concessions. They had to take care of travel. They had to pay their ball players. They had to, when they traveled, where were they going to eat? How were they going to get there? So there was a big business in the black community, and one of the most important people in this whole history is Rube Foster. Rube Foster is someone that came along. He was a great pitcher. He was a great manager. He's in the Hall of Fame, by the way. And in 1920, he came up with the idea of organizing the Negro Leagues. He called the Negro National Leagues. And he brought together 8 different teams. And he said, look, we have to organize. We have to sustain ourselves. And we have to stay committed. They're not going to let us play in the major leagues. One of his ideas, though, was to become an arm of the major leagues, like just have this team from the Negro Leagues, but part of the major leagues. That never happened. So he said, we got to organize and take care of our own business. He died, unfortunately, in 1926, and he was like a very powerful voice. He was an inspirational leader. He had a lot of authority. He helped. He was also the owner of the manager of the Chicago American Giants, and so he cast a big shadow. When he died, the league kind of I don't want to say fell apart, but it was directionless until 1933 when Gus Greenlee came along, and he's the guy who owned the Pittsburgh Crawford Grill, and he was a numbers running guy. But the community they turned a blind eye to that because he was also the bank for the community. If you need to build a church, you go to Gus Greenlee. He owned the Crawford Grill. I think he even was, was in the boxing game. So he's a very powerful guy. And in 1933, he said, let's do what the major leagues did. And they organized an all-star game. And that all-star game put a lot of energy in the Negro Leagues. It was super popular. It was held at Comiskey Park in Chicago. And people from all over the Midwest, the South, the East, dressed to the nines would come out to these all-star games. And from that moment, 1933, through World War II, the Negro Leagues found some footing and it found some popularity. This is the heyday of Satchel Paige and Cool Papa Bell and Josh Gibson, all these great players, and even some giants, Monty Irving and Willie Mays, of course, Jackie Robinson. But I'll just kind of keep it quick. But what ended the Negro Leagues, it was both a tragedy and a triumph, which is like the blues. The blues is the dichotomy of tragedy and triumph. The sad-faced clown and the happy-faced clown, which represents the human condition, something that we all will experience no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter how rich you are, no matter anything, no matter gender, you're going to deal with tragedy and triumph. That's the blues. And so that's the essence of the Negro Leagues, because in 1947, when Jackie Robinson signed, I guess he signed maybe in 46, but when he played his first game for the Dodgers, soon after that came Larry Doby. I think it was July 2nd. He was signed by the Cleveland Indians. And then after that, one by one, all the great players in the Negro Leagues became part of the Major League. Now, we all can say this is a great thing, end of segregation. But what it did is it did destroy the Negro Leagues, because who's going to go and watch the Kansas City Monarchs when all their best players are now in the major leagues? So that's the tragedy in a way. But the triumph was this beautiful league, all these great players, and Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier.
Wow. Boy, what a story. It's fabulous. And it's all created and captured in the program. And that's going to be at the Presidio Theater Sunday, 2 p.m. And you go to the Presidio Theater website, you can get tickets to see the show. I'm not in California. I wish I was there for this one. I really do. You're going to have so many different factors and ways of presenting the story, and it's so creative. And I describe you as an icon, and you are an icon.
Well,
So we're glad to have you on. Seriously.
well, thank you.
To
I do
hear
want to
that.
mention we you
Marcus,
know. Oh, go ahead.
Marcus,
Sorry, Glenn.
I'm imagining that how much fun it would have been to be able to go to a Negro League baseball game, right? Which unfortunately none of us ever did. But so I'm going to just dream that if I would have ever got a chance to go, the music that would be playing, the walk-up songs between is what you're playing. Is that fair?
You know, that's fair. I wish I knew more about what they played for these players, if they had that sort of technology during that time period.
I'm just going to pretend it was your music.
But I could tell you they had the style, and they had they had the rhythm, and they had the language, and because you know all the stories that I've read, and I've read all the books, they talk about that. They talk about that, and all the interviews, and Count Basie. He was a huge baseball fan. He was from Kansas City, and he hung out and he watched the Kansas City Monarchs play. Cab Calloway had an amateur team. Louis Armstrong, he had an amateur team. It was called the Secret Seven. So all these musicians, Duke Ellington, there's that famous picture of Duke Ellington with his band is on tour. In the background, it says, it's a hotel, it says colored only. But in front of his bus, it says Duke Ellington, and it has his team playing pickup ball in front of that bus. So these cats really love baseball. I think that they like the players that were playing, reminded them of who they were and how they played: fast, up tempo, energy, rhythm, style, and they had fun, like you said, Glenn. It was, and the music is fun. Basically, it's called the Negro Leagues and the Blues. So every tune, every composition, and there's 16 pieces in this, including seventh inning stretch, including pregame. We have an umpire that comes out, grabs the lineup card from one of the clowns, who's the pretend manager, watching the other clowns do shadow ball. And shadow ball was very big part of the Negro Leagues. It's like pretending like you're playing catch, getting grounders. And so we use all of that, and they're juggling in many of the sections of the music. And so we have this pregame, we have the seventh inning stretch, we have pieces about Rube Foster. And here's another thing. We have two pieces about two very important women in this history. One was Effa Manley, and Effa Manley was the owner of the Newark Eagles. Her and her husband purchased the Newark Eagles. And first it was in New Jersey, first it was in New York, but they weren't getting the attendance that they felt they could. So they moved to New Jersey, and they got a good deal at the park they were at. And she was a very important, influential leader. One of the things that she used to raise money for a number of the civil rights issues that they were dealing with at the time, like raising monies to fight the anti-lynching laws and stuff like that. She was bringing a lot of attention to these issues. But she also did something really amazing. When Jackie Robinson was picked up by the Dodgers, I mean, he was just plucked out of the air. It wasn't a trade. The Kansas City Monarchs didn't receive players in return or any money, nothing. It'd be like if it'd be like, you know, when Mookie Betts got traded from the Red Sox, and that was a signing, that wasn't a trade. But it was like a player, one of your best players just leaving and you getting nothing in return. Nothing. You know, and so Effa Manley was like, no, we can't do that. We can't allow our players to be just taken from our league, because they were seeing, one day our league may disappear because of that, and it did. But she demanded, because Larry Doby was actually on the Newark Eagles, her team. And when he was signed with the Cleveland Indians, she made sure that they sent some money to the Newark Eagles. that set a standard for the other teams that were losing their players to the major leagues. So she was a very fierce and shrewd businesswoman. There's some great interviews of her online. And so she's a big part of our piece, our musical piece. And Tony Stone, of course. Tony Stone. How can you do a piece about the Negro Leagues and not include Tony Stone, one of the most important people in this history? And of course, she played with the Indianapolis Clowns. And her claim to fame is she replaced Hank Aaron, when he went from the Negro Leagues to the major leagues. She also played for the Oakland Larks. She also played for the San Francisco Sea Lions. Her story has been done in plays. I wrote some songs about her, and we have an actress that portrays her in our piece. And so it's important to kind of highlight, the important women that were part of this history, because there were two other women who played in the Negro Leagues. And so we have that, we include that. We have songs about the various cities that were part of the fabric of the Negro Leagues. Of course, Kansas City, I mentioned that, but New York, the first Negro League team was the New York Cubans. And they call themselves the Cubans because they feared that if they, that no team would play them if they didn't just kind of hide their name. What we call the Cubans, they won't think that we're black. And so that's where they got their name from. They were a very good team. And so we have a piece about New York and the New York Cubans. We have a piece about the Pittsburgh Crawfords, Kansas City Monarchs. We have a piece called Barnstorming. Barnstorming was a big, not just the Negro Leagues, but just baseball during that time. Teams going from one city to the next, sometimes going from two cities, because they made their money, from gate receipts. They were money from great gate receipts. So if you did 2 games in one day, you made more money. Kansas City Monarchs found a way to do 3 games. They were one of the first teams, if not the first team, to have lights so that they can play night games. And so they were doing 3 games. So you learn there's so much amazing history in just the Negro Leagues, just baseball period, which I love. I studied both. But just because trying to get an understanding of this time period and this era, there's amazing history. The players, the cities, the triumphs, the tragedies, the relationship to the music. And then we end really kind of, that was the history there. Where are we now? And what's going on today? And I think we all know that the numbers of Black players have gone down significantly. I think it's 7%. It's pretty low. But nonetheless, we celebrate, okay, I hate the Dodgers, right? But we celebrate people like Mookie Betts. We celebrate our giants that came through our history, like Barry Bonds, of course, and Willie Mays and Willie McCovey. They're part of our final section of the final history here, or the history where we are now. And I even have a photo of Lamont Wade in our final.
Well, that may be a collector's item now.
I have to tell you, I loved Lamont Wade. I really did. He was such a good giant. He was a good player. He was played the game right. He brought a lot of joy to us in 2021. And, I think there were some injuries. And Marty, we talked about this earlier. He just never came back. His swing changed. But anyway, I'll pause there. I feel like I'm talking too much, but
no, it's fabulous to
love it.
His history. I love it. And the show's Sunday, and I wish I could be there for the show, but I'm going to see it one of these days.
We'll bring it to Arizona one day.
Seriously, it's fabulous. I mean, it's so good, and you're so talented, so good at this stuff, and you have that love for baseball. And I'm listening to the whole story, and of course, it's resonating with me and FM Manley and Monty Irvin would have been a Dodger. Effa Manley wanted the Dodgers to pay, and Branch Rickey told her to get lost. So Effa Manley went to Horace Stoneham and said, "You want Monty Irvin? Give me 10,000." And Horace said, "Absolutely." And that's how Monty Irvin became a Giant. So when you tell these stories, it resonates with me. But thank you for being on, and
Thank you, Marty.
just giving us that beautifully done history and how it works into the show Sunday at the Presidio Theater at 2:00. Seriously, I almost want to fly up just to see it.
Well,
But
we'll do it again for sure. And I appreciate you all, Glenn and Eric.
Thanks, Marcus. Nice meeting you.
You bet.
Yeah, thank you all. And Marty, thank you for every time I go to Arizona, I call you. You always say hello. You always make sure you say hi. And sometimes we see each other, sometimes we don't. But I go every year and I make sure I reach out to you. I loved all the dinners we've had over the years. So thank you for having me, brother.
You're special. You are special. Thank you.
Hey,
Mark.
real quick, there's a question before we go. Someone's asking, will the show be available on DVD or Blu-ray?
No, but I do believe it's going to be live streamed. I just learned about that.
Ooh.
So if we go to their website, there definitely will have information on how to access that.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's going to be immediate or archived, but I do know that's what's happening.
Great.
And, yeah. So, and if you go to, Presidio, that's where you should go, presidiotheater.org.
Okay.
Perfect.
Cool. Very good. Thanks, Marcus. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. And go Giants. You got to
There you
get
go.
the Braves.
Take care, Marcus.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you. Wow.
That was great.
Come on.
That was great.
I'm telling you, I almost wish I was flying up to see this.
Wow.
What a great idea, too, if you think about it, right? I mean,
it's perfect.
To somehow combine those two, which you may not in your mind put them together, but after listening to him, it makes sense to put them together, right? It just,
And you just compare it. When I hear that music, I can picture that the 20s, the 30s, the 40s. Oh, it's just, I love it. I bet you it's going to be a great show.
Wow. All right. Let's take a break. Let's come back. We'll talk a little more ball. And that was a pleasure. That was a pleasure having Marcus on. We'll be back right after this.
It's been a pleasure working with Rick Robin this year. Rick Robin, ROBBEN, NapaConstruction.com. Rick, the last time you were on with us, you told us about kitchen and bath remodeling, but there's a lot more going on up in your area.
Yes, there is. ADUs, auxiliary dwelling units, which are known as granny units. We can do your existing garage, attached garage, even building a new unit in the back. And so what we do is come out, bring our architect out there. Such a great thing. No sewer hookup fees, no water hookup fees. So that's what we do.
Rick, how does one start the process with you? How does one get in touch with you?
You call Tammy, 707-332-7575, 7 days a week.
Rick Robin, ConstructionNapa.com. Rick, the thing I like about this, no problem for me. You come out with the plans, the permits, everything is in-house, no fees, and you get a new unit that you can rent out and get money back on your investment right away. I like it, Rick.
Thanks, Marty. Love talking to you.
Rick Robin, ConstructionNapa.com. Fans, great news. If you enjoy Original Joe's, there's a new Original Joe's coming to Walnut Creek, opening late May, early June. Let me tell you a little bit about it. It is going to be fabulous. 300 seats, 13,000 square feet, 3 outdoor patios with 90 outside seats, a full exhibition counter and cocktail lounge. That's the best. And the cocktail lounge will have a multitude of TVs to watch the Giants and the dreaded A's if you want to. It's the first opening of an Original Joe's in 70 years in a new market, and this is really going to be something. 9 years since opening in Westlake, so this is going to be fabulous. It will have a private dining room with accommodations up to 40 people, with its own private bar and patio. It fits Walnut Creek like a glove. This is going to be something else. I can't wait to do some events at the new Original Joe's in Walnut Creek, coming late May, early June.
Wow. Boy, great to have you back with us. Let me throw something out here to Glenn and Eric. The wild card. I keep looking at the loss column, and that's with this whole thing: 16 games, 4 runs or less. The whole thing. Phillies 25 losses, San Diego 26, the Cardinals 27, Giants 28, Milwaukee 29, and Arizona 31. I mean, the whole thing is just completely tight together. And the Dodgers have a 2-game lead over San Diego and 3 over the Giants in the division. So my point is this: with all that goes on in May and we have 99 more games to go, and everything that tells me about this baseball race, this thing is not going away for the Giants. That's my point.
No, absolutely not. I mean, they're listen, with all the angst that we've had the last 2.5 weeks, they're not scoring runs. They still managed to play 500 in this stretch where they're not scoring any runs, which says, a lot about their pitching. Obviously, we've covered all that. But, when it's all said and done, you're, like Marty said, you're tied for the third wild card, and you're 3 games back in the division. And as we like to do, if we would have said that to the fans, hey, it's June, whatever, 4th, 5th, whatever it is, this is where we would be. Would you be happy? And I think every single Giants fan would have said, absolutely. I'll take being tied for the third wild card and 3 back in the division on June, like I said, I don't even know what it is, 5th. Listen, and they're not really, they have players not performing up to their ability, right? I think Ramos has had a terrific year. I think he's been their most consistent player. Lee's fine, just slumping a little bit now. The Adames thing is becoming a concern because he is really struggling. He's 6 for his last 59.
Well,
so that's an issue. But if he could get going, this is a marquee player, and he knows it, and everybody knows it. And I pull for the guy because I really like him a lot, and I think he's very important to this team in a lot of intangible ways. But if he can just get going some and start knocking in runs, gosh, that would be a big thing. And we're not dumping it all on him, but he is hitting 5th in the lineup or 6th, or early on it was 2nd. So my point is they're in a pretty good spot for having an offense that I don't want to say is underachieved, but I think there's more there, you guys. I do. I think there's a little bit more offense there. We'll see how the new guys do, or Encarnacion and that kind of thing. But I think there's a little bit more there, and the pitching's sensational. And you know what? There's a name I want to mention, you guys, and I think you'll agree with me. We talk guys aren't hitting, and everybody wants to fire the hitting coach, right? But does anybody ever bring up the pitching coach's name when your pitching staff has the 2nd best ERA in all of baseball? Has anybody to you guys ever brought up JP Martinez?
JP. Nope.
Right? Let's give the guy some love.
That's fair.
Right? I mean, it's all about numbers, right? It's all about production. He's done a good job. So, if we're going to criticize the coaches when their area is not doing well, let's give them some kudos when their area is doing well. JP
That's
Martinez,
fair.
you deserve to have your name recognized because your pitching staff's pretty darn good.
That's a great point. Because, in this society, we like to point out the negatives, right? When everything's going great, everything, it's kind of, he's just doing what he's supposed to be doing type of thing.
Yeah,
but no, you're spot on.
Yeah.
What's his name? Alston, right? Garvin Alston?
Garvin Alston, great. Yeah, I was with Garvin and with the A's. He's an awesome dude, just an awesome dude. And he's out in the bullpen during the games, but he's very involved in this whole thing. Garv, these guys deserve some credit. Let's give credit where credit's due if we're going to criticize where we think criticism is due. I've always tried to look at it that way, and I think that's a fair way to look at it.
Yeah. Well, the bullpen is tremendous.
Yeah.
It just is. And, this was not a smooth sailing week for the bullpen. They had to work. and they had to work in Washington, and then they
Yeah.
had to work on the road trip. They're working, and that worries me a little bit because of all the tight games that you guys pointed out earlier. They're in there all the time, and Bob Melvin's got to balance all that and keep them fresh. So that's something to keep an eye on. The bullpen, because they need it, because they're always in these tight games. All-star game, Robbie Ray. I mean, can you ask him to do anything else? I'm just thinking in the league, what else do you have? I'd have to go through the league and see who else is doing something.
Well,
But-
he's a Cy Young candidate, right? I mean, he's tied for
So is Logan.
actually, the National League in wins now because he got his 8th today. He's 4th in ERA. He's in the top 5 in innings pitched, top 5 in strikeout. He's a legitimate Cy Young candidate. He really is.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. We have both Logan Webb and Robbie Ray in that conversation. It's
Absolutely.
unbelievable. I mean, this is a this is a juggernaut of a rotation right now.
You got a big time 1 and 2. And again, let's give credit to Farhan. Farhan made that deal to get Robbie Ray.
He did.
I mean, that it was a deal that you're looking ahead.
Projection.
Right? I mean, you knew you were going to get Robbie Ray, and he wasn't going to pitch much for you last year.
Mhm.
But now, you got rid of a couple big contracts, and the money kind of evened out the first couple years. But now you got a Cy Young candidate, and he's worth $25 million a year. And that's what his long contract. And you know what? You got him next year, guys. He's under contract next year. So, man, if Robbie Ray is the real deal and he's healthy and he's back, and you get these 2 years out of him, that's huge. So, give Farhan some credit. That was a pretty good trade. You got Haniger out, you got Descalvani out, you got rid of their contracts. You took on some money down the road, but the money's worth it now because this guy is really, really good.
Yeah, he's good. He's legit.
He is good. Yeah.
What did you think of San Diego?
I don't know. I mean, I like them. Their lineup is tough, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean, but then they're not scoring a ton of runs.
No, their
Right.
bullpen is also
Just-
not invincible anymore. The
No,
starting
no.
pitching is definitely shaky.
yeah, and I they're going to get, you got Darvish is out and Musgrove is out, and
I think
those
they're
guys.
in some trouble. I think they're in some trouble.
Yeah, but I like they just, Machado's a star. He's just a star, I mean,
They're going to have to pitch, and they're
Yeah, no,
starting.
I agree.
You get Kolek, you got
King
the
is out.
Burgert, you get Burgert.
Yeah.
You got Cease today. Cease was a work in progress all the whole
Yes.
game.
yeah.
He
On
was
paper, their rotation is
Nick
really
Pivetta,
good. But yeah, Pavetta's good, but King's out, Musgrove's out, Darvish is out. So now
and
you're
their
down.
bullpen is kind of
Yeah.
settled down a little bit.
Yeah.
It's
They
leaking
have-
oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
How about that kid Lockridge? I think he was on base every time he came up to bat.
yeah, he
Yeah,
was Babe
they
Ruth.
have
He was
some-
Babe Ruth
They have
today.
some players. They have
My
some
goodness.
players.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
they don't hit like
I love a
they don't hit
rise.
like the Dodgers.
Arias, yeah.
They don't hit like
No.
the Dodgers.
No,
And
but
they're gonna
they're feisty though, and they like playing the Dodgers. That's
I
one
know.
thing. I like.
They do.
Like, let's go, bring it
a lot
on,
of
guys.
those games coming up.
Yeah, so they're not going anywhere. Are they flawed in a few areas? Yeah, Giants are flawed in a few areas.
Yeah.
but
They're not as good as I thought they were. Let me put
no,
it that
maybe not. Maybe
Correct.
not. Again, they're right there.
way. I know.
They get some reinforcements. They probably feel the same way the Giants do. Hey, we got a little more in us. We got a little more offensively in us. We'll see, but
And Preller isn't afraid. Preller.
these games are great. I mean, they're tight. And Machado's coming up in the 9th inning. He always bats in the 9th inning, right? Gee whiz, it's not a game unless Machado bats in the 9th inning. But that's what makes it fun, So, and you know what, guys? I looked it up. This 4-game series, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? 142,000 came to Oracle Park.
Wow.
I mean, that's a pretty good number for a 4-game series that's not on a weekend. That's
Right.
a Monday through Thursday, over 142,000 for the 4-game series. And they were into it, and they saw tight games, 4 one-run games. Disappointment, but yet, they had a lot of fun, and then you win the last 2, and and the fans have been into it this year. I give the Giants fans credit this year. They're showing up, and they're into it, even with disappointment, sometimes, but they're into it. Bob Melvin said after the Ramos double last night, it's the loudest he's heard the stadium this year. Maybe the biggest hit of the year, right? The Ramos double so far. But Bob said it's the loudest he's heard the stadium this year. So, give the fans some credit. They're rocking the place and showing up. They're going to sell out on Sunday again. They'll have huge crowds Friday night and Saturday. It's pretty cool out there right now, and it's a lot of fun.
Last question for you, Glenn, and I know you guys got to go. I really appreciate you having me on tonight.
Oh,
they did rebuild the bench a little bit, as I like to say.
Yeah.
What's you're at the clubhouse every day, you're at the park every day. Was there a feeling of, hey, something just happened?
Well, listen, I think guys hate to see teammates that have been there a while go. Lamont. Listen, I mean, Lamont had some big hits for the Giants over the last years. But yeah, I mean, I think they're a better team now. When I say team, I'm talking, 1 through 26, right? Cost was fine, but Casey Schmidt can do what Cost does, right? And Casey may have a little more potential with the bat. We're still kind of waiting for it. So I mean, they're fine depth wise, I think, but I'd like to see him be a little more careful with Wilmer. I've said it all along. You got to give him days off, and when you give him a day off, then you got him late in the game on the bench, which is important. Mm-hmm. Now, listen, he's got to play a fair amount, but I think Wilmer wears down a little bit when you play him too much. That's just me. It's just what I see with him. The backup catcher thing, Marty, is still a little bit of an issue. I don't know what's out there. I know Max Stassi's in AAA. I don't know. You got to get something offensively from the backup catcher spot. So that's a thing. But I think their bench is okay. Encarnacion, when not playing, that's not a bad bat to
now. They
have
made it better,
right? Yeah, and you can, if Yaz isn't playing, you can get him out there defensively late in the game. So little moves like that Bob likes to make are he has the personnel to make those moves. So yeah, I think the bench is a little bit better, and I think the bench is okay.
Yeah, we'll see what Daniel Johnson. Everybody loves him. Good swing.
He can run a little bit, right?
Hungry, yeah. So we'll see. Maybe that'll help off the bench even.
Yep.
Like when Darren Ford came in 2010, the Bullet.
Darren Ford. He was fast. He was fast.
Lowe and I nicknamed him the Bullet.
Oh my gosh.
He did.
Yeah.
So maybe Johnson can give something like that off the bench late in the game.
He made a hell of a catch last night. I mean, he could play all three.
That was the Blanco catch.
If you watch it in slow motion,
yeah,
they may have lost that game if that ball goes through.
Oh,
their eyes is going to be standing on third, and the game is going to be tied. Right?
I said on my show last night, it was very Blanco-esque.
Yeah,
minus the dive. It was the same route.
Yeah. Yep. So you don't just do that by accident. I mean, he had a good route. If he can play center field, I mean, he can be an asset. I mean, that's what you got to look at. Luis Matos, as much as we like him, and I still think he's going to be a good player, I don't know how much of an asset he was as a fourth outfielder. Okay, I mean, he didn't hit much. He needs to play every day, and I think, I think he's better in AAA right now. I know a lot of people disagree, but where are you going to play him? He needs to play every single day. They need to play.
Yeah, you needed a left-handed hitter to get Yaz out of there. And
Yeah,
then
but
you needed Carcione, you needed the right-handed hitter in Carcione.
but
And
we're
that's-
talking about Yaz right now. Yaz was pretty good for the first
Mhm.
7 weeks of the year. Now he's really struggling. So
So and plus, these games are important.
Yeah.
You're in a tight race here. You got to win these games. It's money in
Yeah.
the bank.
yeah,
So take a shot with Johnson, take a shot with Encarnacion, with Dom Smith, and see how it works out. And the one thing that all those three guys have is they seem to be able to swing the bat.
sure.
They may not show up 0 for 10, 0 for 4 today, what have you, but they
Swing the
have they have the ability to swing the bat, and that's what the team needs.
Yep, that's right. Even those two guys helped them win last night and helped them win today, and
Yeah.
so there was
They
a lift
swing the
there.
bat.
Yeah,
They
Yep.
swing the bat. They come to play, and that's
Yep.
where Matos maybe didn't have that
Yep.
ability right now.
yeah.
All right, well, that's it for me.
All right, you guys, awesome as always. Eric, you're the best. Marty,
Hey, appreciate that.
thanks for joining me. I
Yeah,
appreciate
good. We'll have you on KBR Sunday, of course.
Absolutely. All right, you guys, make sure you subscribe to Marty Lurie and Friends, and make sure you subscribe to the Glen Kuiper Show, all Giants, here on YouTube. Guys, thanks for all your work, and everybody that was watching and listening. We appreciate it. We'll see you soon. Thanks,
You bet.
everybody.
And thanks
right.
again, Marcus, for showing up. Appreciate it, guys.
Awesome.
All right. Take care, guys. See you.
Yeah, that was fabulous. Thank you, Marcus. Yeah.
Thank you kindly. Enjoy the next week. We've got a whole bunch of baseball to speak on here at Marty